Hi guys, so when I knew that I was going to be on this trip for 2 full weeks with kind of nothing to do, like I'm house sitting, so it's me and the dog, we're hanging out. I'm not like touring or attending a conference, so I knew I would have a lot of time to do some reading, and I wasn't sure how I wanted to handle the bringing of books. I have a Kindle and I use it sometimes, but I don't love to read exclusively on my Kindle, and we have a complicated relationship. Also, I didn't want to like schlep a ton of books with me on the plane, although I don't mind schlepping a bunch of books back apparently. Anyway, this thought process, which took a while, led to me deciding that I would kind of like budget to go to the bookstore when I got here and pick up some new books. And to make it just like a little bit more interesting for myself and to kind of get me to stretch a little bit more out of my comfort zone, try some things that maybe I wouldn't ordinarily pick up, I wrote a list and made a kind of like scavenger hunt for myself. So it's a series of kinds of books that I have to find at the bookstore. And this is the list. So it's a new release, a literary fiction book, a book that I have been eyeing for a while and just like buy the book already, a book that I am excited about, a whim or a cover buy, and then also just like another adult fiction. So like these aren't the most creative things. I could have done like a book with a flower on the cover or something like that. Anyway, this is my list. And so now I'm going to take you with me to the bookstore and we are going to find the books for this list. Alright, so this is gonna be for a book that I've been eyeing for a while. Just gonna buy it. So for my generic lit fic, I've decided on The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. He won the Pulitzer Prize for this book, I think, and I read the first chapter and it looks really interesting, so I am bringing it home. Also, I've had it on Goodreads and like it's just way thicker than I thought. Oopsies. So for option number 4, which is a book that I'm excited about, I'm going to get Beyond a Darkened Shore. I've been hearing about this one for a while and it looks like it's a pretty good one, so it's coming home with me. So as you will see if you counted, I have 6 things on my list and only 5 books that I actually picked up. I didn't talk during the last 2 because there were some people, a couple like an aisle over, that were hanging out there, and so I just figured I'd film myself grabbing the books and I would talk to you about them now. So the first book that I, the book that I picked up for the first item on my list, which was a new release, was a book that I was actually afraid that I wouldn't get to pick up because I couldn't find it. Like when I got to the bookstore and I was like, okay, number 1, a new release. And then I was like, oh, okay, I think I want to pick up this book. I went to the section in the like general fiction to try to find it. It wasn't there. And so I picked up everything else because it's a 2-floor bookstore, and then I went downstairs and I checked the new releases and it still wasn't there, and then I finally found it on a table. It was the last one, and that is Circe by Madeline Miller, and I was really happy. So it was the last book that I found and I worked really hard to get a hold of it. So we have a breeze? I don't know what's happening with the light, sorry guys. Circe is about Circe, who is a figure from Greek mythology, and it just tells her story. She's best known, I think, for her appearance in the Odyssey, where she's a witch who lives on an island named Aeaea, and she turns men into pigs. And so Odysseus is taught how to avoid getting turned into a pig and how to earn her help, and she gives him a prophecy and stuff. But this story, while it like it's kind of like center is her encounter with Odysseus. It's really just about her life and experiences, how she got there, how she learned magic, and all of those kinds of things. And I actually, like, I wanted to make sure that I would actually like the book, because I haven't heard a ton about it. I've, like, seen it a lot of places, but I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. So I wanted to pick it up, and so I was like, oh, I'll do the try a chapter thing. And then I think I read 7 chapters, like 50 pages in the bookstore. So, whoops. Really enjoying it. You'll hear more about it when I finish. I did talk about this book when I picked it up, and that is The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. This won the Pulitzer Prize. It's by Michael Chabon. So this is about cousins, Sam Clay and Joe Cavalier, and they start a comic book. So you also saw me pick this one up. This is Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. It's a book that I have been wanting to pick up for a long time, and I just finally bought it after thinking about it for, like, actually years. This is about a boy named Salim, who is born at the stroke of midnight on the day that India achieves independence from Britain. And it turns out that Salim and also other children who were born at the same time have special powers. That's kind of all I know about it, but I really liked Rushdie's Haroun in the Sea of Stories, and like I said, I've been just really intrigued by this premise, and I've been wanting to read it for a long time, so here it is in my hand. So for a book that I am excited about, I picked up a YA book that I've just been, like, hearing a lot about on BookTube, and I really liked the sound of the premise, so I figured I would just go ahead and buy it for, like, a kind of like a fun read. A lot of these stories that I picked up are a little bit more literary, and so I just wanted something that was kind of fun, and that is Beyond a Darkened Shore by Jessica Leek. This is about a girl named Kiara who has some special abilities, and one day she is defending her home from a group of raiding Northmen or Vikings because her father, who's the king, is away fighting his own battle. And she is told by this mysterious crow that has been flying around telling her things to spare the leader's life, because it turns out that there is a much greater threat coming to the shores of Ireland, and she needs this guy's help to defeat it. And then it kind of goes from there. So it just sounds like really fun. It's a little bit of a myth, not like retelling, but Irish and also Norse deities make some appearances, and of course Kiara and Leif, the Viking leader, fall in love, because that's a thing, and it just sounds like a fun kind of adventure story that doesn't have a lot of, like, teeth. Also, it's a standalone, which I'm really excited about. I think we don't have enough fantasy standalones in the world, and I'm glad this one is. So the next 2 books are the ones that I picked up that I didn't, like, talk about in the bookstore. I just grabbed them off the shelves. The first one is my whim or cover buy, which is Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel, and this is a story about a girl named Rose falls through the earth and lands on a giant hand, a metal hand. And she becomes a scientist and finds herself 17 years later in charge of studying this hand and the place around it. That's kind of all I know about it. Books with Emily Fox talked about the 3rd book in the series. I think it's a trilogy. She said she really enjoyed this series. It's science fiction. And so I figured, hey, why not pick it up? It's also kind of short, and a lot of the books that I have bought so far are very long. So, takes up less place in my suitcase. I don't know. The cover's pretty. Can you see the, like, it's got this cool, like, clockwork thing and this weird, like, symbol. Anyway, very intriguing. Looking forward to this one. And then the last book, which is certainly not least, I have to put that aside. So one of the things I was doing with this list is trying to make myself pick up more adult fiction, which I did a very good job with. I only picked up one YA book, and so the last item on the list was just get another book that's adult. It didn't have to be literary fiction, it just had to be an adult book. So I decided to pick up City of Brass. I kind of keep like hearing about this and then forgetting about it, and so when I saw it on the shelf, I was like, yes, I need this one. This is a fantasy that is based on Middle Eastern mythology. So it's about a girl named Nari who is a thief in Cairo with some healing abilities, who accidentally summons a jinn or deva, so a genie basically, and he realizes pretty quickly that she is not as human as she thinks she is, and there are some dark forces after her for reasons, and so he takes her to Devabad, which is like the capital of the Deva world, which is the City of Brass, because it's surrounded by brass walls. And then we also get a second perspective, which is Ali, who is the youngest son of the king of Devabad, and he is kind of a little bit of a religious fanatic. He's quite young, and it turns out that in Devabad at this time there's a lot of political complicated things going on, a lot of different factions that want different things, that have legitimate concerns, and Ali is kind of thrust into the middle of this, and that's all before Nari shows up and makes everything even more complicated. Really interesting synopsis. I love the idea of a Middle Eastern fantasy. There goes the dog. So those are the six books that I bought. I've actually started a bunch of them and finished some other ones, so you can see my thoughts about all of them as I read them and as I finish them in my next reading vlog or two. So let me know in the comments if you have ever tried something like this, or if you think you might be interested in trying a book scavenger hunt. I'll put the criteria that I gave myself in the comments, although please feel free to, if you do decide to do this, to make up your own criteria. It was super fun. I really enjoyed this little challenge for myself. I think it definitely pushed me to look a little bit harder at books that I wouldn't necessarily pick up, and so far everything that I've picked up I'm really enjoying, so it worked out really well. That's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and you'd like to see more quality content like this. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter. My handles are in the description box, along with, like I said, the list of criteria that I gave myself. I'd love to chat with you guys about any of these books in the comments, and thanks for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!